Remember when Odin called Asgard the Realm Eternal? Well, let's hope these guys were a little more careful with using that word as their name. It's 2021, which means we finally get to see the big screen debut of Marvel's Eternals. But just who are these Earthbound heroes? Where do they come from? Who are their enemies? Do they prefer sushi or froyo? Stick around for today's video to have most of these questions and more answered as we take a deep dive into the origins of the Eternals, as well as how they may possibly fit into the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe overall. The Eternals have been around for an immensely long amount of time, about 1 million years ago to be exact. Their existence far predates when the first Avenger was even in diapers. Some beings who have actually been around longer than the Eternals would be their creators, the Celestials. Celestials are powerful cosmic beings whose favorite pastime was influencing historic events on Earth. In many ways, the Celestials were scientists conducting genetic experiments and tests on the primitive species of Earth. Once the evolutionary difference between apes and humans was made clear enough, they began their experiments. First, in order to understand the history of the Eternals, it is important to explore groups of which their past is unequivocally linked. In the first stage of their experiments, known as the First Host, a celestial by the name of Gamedon the Gatherer, aptly named, collected several specimens from the planet Earth. From here, celestials such as Ziran the Tester, Nezar the Calculator, and Tiamat the Communicator began altering the genes of these subjects into 3 groups. The first group was known as the Deviants. These were grotesquely mutated creatures. Similar to how Asgardians' early trips to Earth gave rise to Nordic legends and Viking cultures, early encounters with the Deviants led to ancient stories of creatures like trolls and ogres. The final group were normal humans given a dormant gene that would reveal itself over time. This gene would show up in many forms, including the X gene in future mutants, as well as explanations for characters like Bruce Banner and Peter Parker gaining powers in situations that would kill most normal humans. The important group here is the second one that was created in the first host of experiments, the Eternals. While the Deviants were horrible mutated monsters, the Eternals appeared to be the peak of human perfection and were imbued with the cosmic energy. Nezar created 100 Eternals and assigned them with the job of protecting the Celestials, as well as the Great Machine, an artificial but obedient intelligence designed to further the Eternal society. They created regeneration chambers which allowed Eternals to return from death. The Deviants and the Eternals viewed human beings in opposite fashion. While the Deviants set up their capital city of Lemuria as a base to conquer and kill humans, the Eternals set up a base in North America called Titanos in order to protect and observe the humans. As time went on, due to their immortal nature, the Eternals would not reproduce, while the Deviants would grow their population into the millions and, for all intents and purposes, conquer Earth. Disagreements among the Eternals led to split factions, some of whom would leave Earth to start colonies elsewhere. Overrun, the Eternals called upon the Celestials for help, and the Celestials would deliver their first interference in their experiment, which would be dubbed the Second Host. The Second Host saw the wiping out of nearly all Deviants through the flooding of Earth, and the sinking of cities including Lemuria and Atlantis into the oceans. The Eternal Ikaris led a group of Eternals atop a mountain to survive the smiting of Earth by the Celestials, where they would begin anew. After society was rebuilt, the longtime leader of the Eternals, Kronos, conducted an experiment which allowed the Eternals to grow immensely in power, but at the cost of Kronos' life. With their new abilities, the Eternals developed a unimind, allowing them to join their collective will and intelligence. Even with this bond, however, there were still disagreements about the way the Eternal Society should move forward. While one group believed in expansion and the growth of the Great Machine, the other, led by Zurus, a son of Kronos, believed in continued isolationism and observation. The expansion group, led by Alars, another son of Kronos, left Earth to start a new colony on Titan. The Earthbound Eternals founded new capitals such as Oceania, Polaris, and Olympia. In this time, the Eternals became involved in advancing several ancient societies, such as the Incan, Mayan, Greek, and Aztec empires. The third host of Celestials came after another war with the Deviants, and cultivation of Earth was deemed of extreme importance. Greek gods and Asgardians were warned not to interfere with the Celestials' experiments, and a truce between the Eternals and the Deviants was drawn until the fourth host of Celestials was to arrive. When that time came, the Celestials started their journey back to Earth in the 20th century, but over time had become unwelcome by many. Odin specifically mustered as much power as he could to stop their return, and possessed a giant version of a destroyer armor to fight them off. After some reluctance, the Earthbound Eternals joined him in the fight. However, even their combined power of the Unimind was no match for the great cosmic beings, and they were struck down. Their leader, Zurus, was killed, and the Unimind broken. Despite their uprising, the Celestials still allowed their experiment on Earth to play itself out, leaving the planet and having yet to return. Many Eternals share similar powers, such as superhuman strength, durability, immortality, and many other things. Thena, who for many years went by the name Azura, is an especially gifted warrior, as she has spent her millions of years of existence studying forms of combat and weaponry that have been used throughout history. Thena is also particularly gifted in psionic and cosmic energy manipulation. This allows her to quickly heal herself, produce light, fire, and even manifest weapons from thin air. Thena's history is somewhat rebellious, as she more than once found herself forming relationships with deviants. She's born children with crossbred genetics, as well as an on-again, off-again relationship with a deviant named Crow. Ikaris is granted many of the standard Eternal abilities, but has also spent several years training to advance these abilities beyond those of other Eternals. He has gained the ability of advanced healing, as well as attuned his senses to near perfection. His manipulation of cosmic energy allows him to shoot concussive blasts from his eyes and hands. Ikaris is a natural leader, and led a group of Eternals to restart society after the second host of Celestials sank civilizations such as Atlantis into the ocean. During his time in ancient Greece, Ikaris had a son with a human woman and named him Ikaris. After the older Ikaris left to fight a long series of deviants, his son used a flying machine to search for his father, but flew too high and perished when the heat from the upper atmosphere damaged his machine. Ikaris' long life has seen him encounter many allies and foes. He's helped Black Bolt set up an inhuman city, and been saved from peril by Tony Stark. He's come face to face with the Mad Titan Thanos, and even participated in the Grandmaster's Contest of Champions. Sersi, like all Eternals, was created millions of years ago. She in particular seems to have made a habit of becoming part of well-known historical occurrences. She's had a relationship with Odysseus during his voyage known as the Odyssey, as well as conquered the evils released by Pandora's box. She was present to meet such historic figures as Attila the Hun and King Arthur, and was even present in France during the French Revolution. Eventually, she moved to Upper Manhattan in the modern era and became well known for throwing extravagant parties for the rich and famous crowd in New York City. She's been a member of the Avengers, and became particularly violent and aggressive when she was believed to have been suffering from the Mod Wyrie, a mental affliction specific to Eternals due to their long life. It was her relationship with the Black Knight that set her at ease. Sersi has a gifted ability for matter transmutation as well as projecting images from her own mind. Eternals are known for their great strength. They're all capable of lifting several tons with ease. Gilgamesh is known as one of the strongest Eternals in existence. He can lift well in excess of 100 tons, more than double that of Ikaris, and like Thena, studies combat methods used throughout Earth's history. Gilgamesh is very unique among the Eternals, as he spent a large majority of ancient times being unaware of his Eternal heritage. He became a king and a warrior who ironically sought immortality, not coming to the realization that he already had it until later. He slayed beasts and overthrew tyrants and was often mistaken for ancient heroes like Hercules. Once his true heritage was revealed, he was shunned by the other Eternals, and even adopted the name the Forgotten One. Sad. However, the leader Zurus tried to make it up to him after his bravery during the fourth host of Celestials by renaming him Hero. Gilgamesh eventually readopted his own name and joined the Avengers and became friends with the actual Hercules. Ajak's powers are nothing special among the race of Eternals, but his history is certainly intriguing. Ajak has fought in the Trojan War, and fought off Crow's forces in Central America, being mistaken as the gods of the Aztec and Incan empires. Ajak was chosen above all others to act as a liaison between the beings of Earth and the Celestials during their third host. He was then put to sleep until their fourth arrival. Ajak has had tumultuous relationships with heroes like Thor and Zeus, as well as fellow Eternal Makkari, who was chosen to be the communicator with Celestials over him. Ajak, however, is a strong and capable leader, and found himself in numerous conflicts such as the Skrull invasion and the arrival of the Dark Celestials. In the comics, Kingo actually hails from a civilization in Japan. Though he has all the powers of the Eternals, he chooses to forego them in battle, and fights in the traditional way of the Japanese samurai. Kingo has had numerous conflicts with the troublesome Eternal Druig, but for the most part lived his life as a warrior in Japan. In the modern age, Kingo became a Japanese action film star, unlike in the upcoming movie where he will find a career in Bollywood. It wasn't until the fourth host of Celestials began to arrive that Kingo would teleport to Olympia to join the other Eternals in the formation of the Unimind to try and stop the oncoming threat. Sprite, unlike most Eternals, is a rather immature trickster. He loves to play tricks on the other Eternals as well as humans with his illusions. He became the inspiration for literary characters such as Shakespeare's Puck and Peter Pan. His illusion casting abilities are actually the best ever seen in an Eternal. This attitude and manner of behavior may have something to do with the fact that Sprite is somewhat cursed to live the life of a child. His appearance and actions certainly prove that point. Sprite is known for causing perhaps one of the greatest calamities in the Eternals' existence. With the desire to find a way to finally grow up, Sprite hatched a plan to use the power of the great dreaming celestial to wipe the minds of all the Eternals, reverting them to the lives of normal human beings. Eventually, Sprite was discovered and punished and soon went back to their old trickster ways. Phastos is a genius-level Eternal whose past and history is relatively unknown. He was once a weaponsmith in ancient Greece and has long since carried a disregard for the meaning of life, always searching for something that he would feel gave life purpose. That being said, he's been the teacher of great scientists as well as made incredible weapons such as Kingo's sword. Phastos eventually became known as the public hero Ceasefire in an attempt to avoid war with the Deviants. His mind eventually wiped by Sprite's plan, he lived as an engineer in Germany until forcefully awakened by Ikaris. Makkari has the powers of all other Eternals, but spent their life especially focused on their enhanced speed. Throughout history, Makkari was confused for the gods Hermes and Mercury and adopted the name of the latter, eventually abandoning it for the moniker of Hurricane. Makkari was president for the rule of Vlad the Impaler and witnessed historical events like the Battle of the Alamo. Makkari's greatest achievement did not come until the 20th century and beyond. During World War II, he had an ongoing conflict with the warlord deviant Crow who instigated fighting all across Europe. He helped save New Yorkers from the tidal wave sent by the Submariner, was slain and reborn by the Cosmic Cube, and most importantly, taught Elvis a few guitar tricks. Makkari's legacy probably lives in his dealing with the dreaming Celestial who chose him to be the Celestial's prophet. Though it drove other Eternals like Ajak angry with jealousy, Makkari was chosen to be the great communicator with the Celestials. Druig is a master of telekinesis and has a rather villainous history. Like all Eternals, Druig is gifted with superhuman strength and durability, as well as the ability to cast illusions. His telekinesis allows him to fly, and he is especially gifted in the realm of matter transmutation. Often throughout the comics, he uses his powers of telekinesis and mind control for evil means, like the time he controlled a Mongol army led by the son of Genghis Khan and forced them to invade Europe. He joined the Russian KGB in the modern era and grew especially fond of torturing people. During this time, he hatched a plan to kill the Celestial Xeron the Tester, even torturing his cousin Ikaris for information. Ikaris destroyed Druig before his plan could be carried out. Like all Eternals, however, his powers of near immortality allowed him to return. We've already seen many hints at the Celestials in the MCU. Ego, the living planet, the severed head of Nowhere, and the being who wielded the Power Stone in the Collector's lovely PowerPoint presentation are all examples of Celestials. These Celestials could very well be the ones, or at least related to the ones, who initially developed the experiments on genetics of Earthbound beings. The Eternals trailer states that they have always been there, vowing not to interfere. Therefore, it's likely that everything we've seen on Earth, from the Frost Giant attack in the past all the way to Mysterio ruining Spider-Man's vacation, the Eternals have been present and viewing along with us. The greatest hint of the presence of the Eternals in the MCU has come in the form of the MCU's greatest villain to date. Thanos the Mad Titan is a direct descendant of an Eternal. In Avengers Infinity War, we learned that Thanos' lineage was most likely kept consistent with his comic origins, as Red Skull, now keeper of the Soul Stone, reveals Thanos' father to be the Eternal Alars. Alars, you will recall, was the Eternal who led a group of followers to a new settlement in space. His group believed that the Eternals should reproduce and further advance their own society as opposed to simply observing and progressing the humans. He formed the colony on Titan and it became a marvel of technology and evolution. However, in the comics, Titan came to ruin. Thanos' mother tried to kill him, as his appearance was due to him being born with a deviant gene, unlike his brother Eros, who appeared as all other Eternals. It's possible in the Eternals movie that we could see the founding of Titan by Alars, its destruction, or even a young Thanos being bullied for his wrinkly chin. In Avengers Endgame, Okoye reports to Black Widow of an earthquake under the ocean. Many have speculated that this could hint at the underwater kingdom of Atlantis. In the Eternals movie, if we are to see the second host of Celestials in their experiment on Earth, we could see the deviant civilization of Lemuria as well as the kingdom of Atlantis sink into the ocean, setting up the arrival of its ruler, Namor the Submariner. The Celestials are also responsible for the creation of the X gene, which after millions of years manifested itself to create mutants. If we're to see the introduction and initial experimentation on the early human beings of Earth, it's possible that some seeds to one day introduce the wide world of mutants and the introduction of the X-Men could be planted. Finally, the Eternals characters that will be introduced in the film could have lasting impressions on the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall. Members such as Gilgamesh and Sersi could join the Avengers in correspondence with their comic history. The unveiling of such powerful beings like Eternals and Celestials could call for even greater villains to challenge them, such as Galactus or even the Dark Celestials. Throughout the comics, the majority of the Eternals have certainly lived up to their name. Let's hope they can keep it going with their big screen debut. Which of the Eternals do you think is most likely to have the biggest impact on the MCU?